Hello everyone and welcome again to the Prado Museum for another of our weekly sessions in English here with the American Friends of the Prado Museum. I am excited to share news with you today because we've had a lot of requests from those of you who want to learn more about the collections in the Prado in English, and so the American Friends is launching a course where you can do this. We're going to have a month-long course which will take place in March. The classes will be held in a classroom here at the offices of the American Friends of the Prado Museum on the Prado campus. You can come and attend in person here in Madrid, and you can also attend these classes online. So you can sign up for this class and learn more about the Prado's collections in English from anywhere in the world. I'll be teaching the course, so I look forward to seeing you there. Today we're going to be looking at these models, these preparatory sketches for tapestries. These are painted by Rubens, and these were commissioned from Isabel Clara Eugenia, the Archduchess Isabel Clara Eugenia in 1625. She commissioned from Rubens this series that was going to be of 20 tapestries. And the overarching theme, the title of this series, is the triumph of the Eucharist, this leading Catholic dogma that is really going to mark her reign as sovereign princess and governor of the southern Netherlands. And these tapestries were meant to be hung in the Monasterio, well, were hung in the Monasterio de las Descalzas Reales in Madrid. This is a monastery that was founded by Juana de Austria. Juana de Austria was the daughter of Charles V, and she founded this convent in 1559 in the palace where she was born. So this is a convent palace. Juana was Princess of Portugal, and when she came back from her time in Portugal, she retired there. And actually, a lot of the Habsburg women spent significant parts of their lives in the Monasterio de las Descalzas. It's a beautiful convent palace that you can still visit today, still occupied by a religious order, but still also full of artistic treasures, and you can visit it in Madrid. Isabel Clara Eugenia, the daughter of Philip II, was also educated in the Descalzas Reales. And later, as governor of Netherlands, she hired Rubens to make this series of the Triumph of the Eucharist to hang there. As we can see, they are full of what we know of Rubens. They are full of motion, they are full of action, they're full of color, movement. These are images that delight the senses, they engage the viewer, they're exciting stories, and I think that they also have a powerful political message as well, which we'll see. We can see that Rubens thought of this idea where this scene is taking place on a hanging cloth, and as we know, these are the preparatory sketches for what would be a tapestry, for a hanging cloth. So we have this kind of visual play, this illusion of what's real and what's painted and what's woven, and we'll see that throughout, this idea of illusion in theater that is so characteristic of the Baroque. In this tapestry, this preparatory sketch, we see the angel carrying the Eucharist, which is flying into the scene, and with the angel and with the Eucharist comes this really bright light, and that bright light of the Eucharist is driving these people out who are arriving to a Roman temple of the Capitoline Jupiter to participate in a pagan sacrifice. And so here we have this theme of Christianity over the pagan practice here. We can see the slaughterers who are trying to secure this animal who is going to be sacrificed. There's an older priest and a younger priest as well. And in all of this chaos and all of this movement, all of this motion, this stone altar has been knocked over, which also knocks over this jar of wine, and the wine is spilling out, but here we have one of these illusions again. The wine is not spilling out onto the ground, but it's actually spilling out of the scene, like this person's sandal is kind of hanging off of the scene, kind of invading our space in this trickery of the eye that Rubens is building for us. So throughout these 6 panels, we have Rubens' idea of this clashing of good and evil between Christian iconography and classical iconography, using those to tell this story of the triumph of Christianity. Here we have different forms of dissent, different forms of nonconformity, and different forms of Christianity triumphing over that in different ways. In this last panel here, we can see the idea of the victory of truth over heresy, and we see truth, veritas, truth, this allegory in the shape of a woman, of Veritas, who's being led by time and pointing upwards to this Latin inscription that says, "This is my body." And "this is my body" is the phrase that is said in a Catholic Mass in this miraculous moment of the host turning into what is the body of Christ. And if we look below, we have an interesting idea of Rubens' interpretation of what heresy is. We have this dragon to tell us this idea of evil that is being vanquished. There's a fox, a sly fox that is being tamed by this noble lion. So we have these symbols, and then we have other figures that are less symbolic and are rather concrete, because we also have here historical figures. We have John Calvin and Martin Luther, the leaders of the Protestant Reformation, or thinkers behind the Protestant Reformation, which would be very much something that Isabel Clara Eugenia was trying to control as governess of the Netherlands. So this would be an effective visual aid, this entire series, for the Counter-Reformation political message designed by Isabel Clara Eugenia, the person who commissioned these paintings and tapestries. Isabel Clara Eugenia was the eldest daughter of Philip II and Elizabeth of Valois, and she was co-sovereign of the Netherlands from 1598, and then after the death of her husband, the Archduke Albert of Austria, she was then governor of the Netherlands until 1633. And she was a very important patron of the arts as well. Actually, dozens of works in this museum are here thanks to her, and she was a very important promoter of the work of Rubens in Spain. And for these reasons, because of her political role, and also maybe because of her role in the arts, this is why we have an image of her likeness in this panel of the defenders of the Eucharist. On the left, we have different saints: St. Ambrose, St. Augustine, St. Gregory. And from the right, we have St. Jerome reading his translation of the Bible, and St. Norbert and St. Thomas Aquinas. And in the center, we have St. Clare of Assisi. But this is a face that bears more than a passing resemblance with Isabel Clara Eugenia, and she's standing discreetly, but with a lot of importance, with a lot of authority, and she's holding the Eucharist in her hand, showing what her role is in all of this. And she's wearing a nun's habit, obviously because she's being portrayed as St. Clare, but also because she was a widow, but even more because at this time she was thinking of leaving her position as governess of Netherlands and was planning to retire in the Monastery de las Descalzas. She was planning on ending her days in retirement in the monastery that she hired Rubens to paint these sketches for, which would later be turned into tapestries to be hung in the Monastery de Descalzas Reales. Isabel Clara Eugenia is a fascinating woman, incredibly powerful, incredibly influential for the Prado's collections, and you can find out a lot more about her on our website. I'm sure you know now about the different itineraries that have been prepared called The Female Perspective in the Prado Museum. If you look this up on the website, there's a lot of downloadable material. You can also do the itinerary here in person if you come visit the museum and get to see the impact of some women like Isabel Clara Eugenia in the collection of the Prado Museum, so I invite you to do so. And I hope to see you in the course in March, so thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you next week.